Hello and welcome back. So, talking with Jason Mays was fantastic, and I think I am ready to go. We're ready to go and make a component, or I guess rather a set of web components where we can see a visualization overlay where you have a video and you can see points visualized, like I held up my finger and you can see a point where each point on my finger is, or my hand, or the rest of my body, or a whole face mesh through face landmarks. So I want to make a component, or rather a set of components, where you can visualize all of these points, whether it's, where my eyes are, where my head is, where all my fingers are. You can see all this stuff in real time being visualized, but more importantly, get information about where these points are in 2D or even 3D space. So let's get started. Here we are, of course, in WebStorm. This is my favorite IDE. Maybe yours is VS Code. We can get along. It's totally fine. We're staring at a blank project. Now we've started from scratch. In the previous episodes, our last two projects, our components, our demo applications, they've all started from a blank slate like this. But I think this time, I'm a little sick of having to research everything I need to install, working out everything, making everything come together. So I want to use something to help me out here. And if you've ever been a React developer, you might have seen this cool thing called Create React App. I used it a couple times when I dabbled in React, and it gives you so much more than you need. And I kind of said I would never use anything like that, but now we're here and I want something like that, right? So let's try a couple different things out. So let's use something from OpenWC, and it's a generator. So let's copy this command and just paste it into a terminal. So we're going to do npm init OpenWC. Let's see how this works out. So here we have a prompt already. I want to scaffold a new project rather than upgrade an existing one because we're starting from scratch. So I would like to scaffold a web component. So let's start with a web component. And yeah, I do want linting with ESLint and Prettier, so that's cool. Let's use that. Testing. We should all do testing. I'm not going to do it today because I'm kind of being lazy and I want to skip over that. And next up is demoing. Now, this is one of the reasons I don't really want to use this solution, this OpenWC generator, but let's try it out anyway. And the next question is, would I like to use TypeScript? I'm going to say yes. I want to make this a really, a professional grade, production level component. So I think we kind of pigeonholed ourselves into using TypeScript with this one. So let's do that. And what is the name of my web component? I'm going to call it Pose Capture. There we go. Next question. We have a bunch of files. Yeah, sure. I'll write this file structure to a disk. And next up, do I want to install my dependencies? Of course I do. So I am still using npm, so let's go with that. So installing my components here. So now let's take a peek at what OpenWC installed for us. Now, one of the first things I'm seeing in this file structure is I don't see an ESLint or a Prettier file, right? I told it that I wanted to use those, but I just don't see them. So what happened was it expects you to use VS Code, which I'm not using. Oh no. And so the recommendations there, it's all in my VS Code file. So I'm using a VS Code Prettier extension and a lit plugin extension and an ESLint extension right here. Obviously, since I'm not using VS Code, this doesn't help me. So that is one of the reasons why I'm not going to be using the OpenWC generator today. The other reason is Storybook. So now Storybook is actually pretty nice. So let's npm run Storybook and get a sample. All right, so we have this Storybook web page here. It's to demo all of our components. So we can have different variations of our component and demo them in line here. And we have some docs related to that. And on the bottom here, we have some controls where we can give it a different title if we want. And we can set the number of the counter to whatever we want. So these are some really nice interactive controls that it's really meant to, if I understand Storybook correctly, is to allow a number of different variations on the page be able to interact with them, and explore every single possible variation on your component that you could ever possibly think of. So I think where Storybook really shines is, a component or a set of components where you do want to show a bunch of different varieties, a bunch of different components, all in one. And I think there's no better place to look at examples of this than a library we've used before. This is Adobe's Spectrum Web Components. We've used Spectrum Web Components to build stuff in the past. We're not going to be using that this time. But if we take a look at all these different variations of an accordion, for example, we have a demo right here on the top. We can play with different controls, whether it's open or closed right here. It's a really nice UI to bring everything together and document your components in a way that just lets you play with them as much as you want. So I think you can see that Storybook is really nice and really appropriate for something like Spectrum Web Components. But I don't think it's appropriate for the component we'll be building. Now, you've seen some of those TensorFlow.js demos. They are even though TensorFlow does a great job keeping up and rendering these things as high as 80 frames per second, 85 frames per second, I don't want all that CPU power on a demo page all the time. I want to be very careful about building a demo page and being very selective about what controls I give the user and how I show these demos, because I just don't want to blast them with something that's going to turn on their camera right away or show a video right away and start, utilizing a lot of their CPU and GPU. So I want to be selective about what I show. And to me, that means maybe creating some kind of static site that I have a lot of control over. Something that doesn't look like this, where I show every single thing that the component can do with controls down here that you can tweak. So based on those two things, I think I want to move on and explore something else, a new solution to create a project for me. I'm going to use a template this time. So to get started with a template, I'm going to go straight to lit.dev. Now remember, lit is a library that lets us work with web components a little bit easier. You don't need it, but it really helps. We've used it in the past couple episodes. We're going to use it again in this episode. We're going to go straight to the starter kits. So we're going to choose a starter kit. We're going to choose a TypeScript starter project. And already, because we're choosing a lit template, we're going to get lit installed automatically. Not a big deal if we need to install it separately, but we're going to get it with this. So I think it'll be great. So we're going to use this template, and I'm going to create a new repository from the lit element starter TypeScript project. I'm going to call it pose capture. That's already taken because I already did it. We're going to call it pose capture 2, I guess. So we're going to create that. And then, we're going to create the repository from the template. So after we've cloned that template, we've used that template to create our new project. Take a look at this repo. We can see all the files we need right here. Already, I'm noticing we have a prettier file, prettier JSON, ESLint files. So unlike the OpenWC generator, all that stuff isn't locked right into the VS Code settings. So I can use them in WebStorm. And so all we need to do now is go ahead and copy our URL, and we can clone it right here in my IDE. So I'm going to copy and paste that URL. We're going to make pose capture 2. And again, it's 2 because I already have a pose capture project. So let's go ahead and clone that. And WebStorm is reminding me that we do need to npm install things. So let's do that. All right, so with that done, let's see what happens if we just do a simple npm run serve. As we load our demo page here, you can see that it's kind of an intermediate demo page where we can click on component demo. We can have multiple entry points, different components, different links for each. So once we click on this first one that we have, or this only one, we get to the actual demo page that we want to show off. And this doesn't quite look right, so let's see what's going on. So it's saying it can't find myelement.js, which means that before we actually demo this, we should build it with TypeScript. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to stop my server, npm run build. So you can see it just went through the TypeScript. So let's start that server again and see if we get a better result. So start the server, do the component demo. All right, here we go. It's actually interactive now. So click count, basic stuff, and let's just make sure it is a web component, has a shadow root, makes sense. So, all right. And you can see lit is in play here, lit.dev. It's in dev mode, so it's not recommended for production. So now while we're trying to do development on our local machine, it's in dev mode. So presumably when we need to publish it, when we need to publish this package, it won't be in dev mode for us anymore. It'll be in production mode. So you can tell that even these finer details like this, it's great that this got all set up for us. We don't have to think about it. It's just good to go. Let's keep exploring though. Next, let's just try running the docs. So before we try to load them up, let's just make sure they're there. So let's just try building them. npm run docs build. All right, that looks good. No errors. So this is what I was talking about. So we don't have a Storybook page. We have an actual static site. So we have a banner. We can look at our homepage, have some different examples on here if we want, or have example page with a couple of different child pages. So this next page is pretty neat. It's the API page. And it's neat because we don't create this page ourselves. It gets automatically generated from this thing called a custom elements manifest. So the custom elements manifest, it's a JSON file that gets automatically generated, contains everything seen here like methods, properties, attributes, events, and we can generate documentation from it as well. So that's all part of this template. So this template's already impressing me. It's great. But the thing about this entire static site, it's based on another popular technology called S01E03.4. Static site generator. So this ability to customize things, this is exactly what I wanted. Like I said, I didn't want Storybook to come in and automatically load components where we're auto-starting video, auto-starting your camera, all of a sudden bombing your CPU with TensorFlow processes. I wanted a slow start. I wanted a proper demo page that I could customize, and this is great. S01E is great for this. Now, of course, with any template like this, there's going to be things I don't want to use, right? Now, I already told you I didn't want to do testing because honestly, I'm just being lazy, I guess. So let's get rid of the few tests we have by deleting this folder right here. Now, I'll leave our ability to test intact. So there's a bunch of testing tasks right here that we can use anytime we want. Maybe someday I'll add some tests back in here, but I'm not going to use them right now. Now, the other thing about this template is we still have polyfills as part of this. We don't need them anymore. Internet Explorer is dead. That was never going to be able to do web components, but the rest of our browsers, all the modern browsers right now, they can do web components. We don't need polyfills. We don't even need to think about older devices or browsers because remember, we're using TensorFlow.js. It's going to be using your GPU, so just by the nature of what we're trying to do here, old machines, old browsers, they're out. I don't expect them to run this thing. So we're going to get rid of this polyfill. I'm also going to remove it from our demo page. So we're going to go into our index.html for our one demo page right now. We don't need these two lines because these are both polyfills. Now, the other place I'm going to remove these polyfills from is just from the docs folder. So right in our docs folder, we have an index.html file. And we're using polyfills. We don't need to do that. So let's get rid of those. And we have a few other pages where we are using the same thing, like our install page. And we also have our examples page. And then lastly, our API page, our index.html. We're still loading the polyfills. I don't think we have web components that we need to polyfill on this page, but all the same, let's get rid of this. So as we load our demo page again, you can see that we're using the MyElement web component. We can replace this. I think the next step is to replace this with something really easy, but something really basic that we need, and that's the video playback component that we're gonna need. So we're going to start with a video playback component and then augment that with some TensorFlow body tracking superpowers. But let's start small. Let's start with that video playback component. So that'll be right up in the next step. So let's continue this and build some video playback.